Welcome to another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum where all voices matter. As Black History Month continues, Boom and Bust is pleased to discuss an important partnership in Canada devoted to supporting Black-led businesses, not-for-profits, and charities. It's called the Black Opportunity Fund, and we welcome Colin Lynch, who is a co-founder and also head of global real estate investments at TD Asset Management. Welcome to the program, Colin.
Thank you, Tony. Glad to be here.
It's glad to have you. First of all, tell us more about this Black Opportunity Fund.
Yeah, it's an initiative of many individuals to effectively provide a sustainable long-term pool of capital to Black entrepreneurs, to Black businesses, and also to Black charities and nonprofits, designed to fully reflect the community, national in scope, and to provide that sustainable long-term pool of capital. Why? To help these organizations, these individuals accomplish the potential that they know and we know that they have, so that they're able to contribute to Canada's economic growth.
So in order to, I'm just sort of unpacking what you just said, it was very important. So obviously you identified a problem that needed to be solved. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw pre-pandemic that whether it was a business looking to get financing, or whether it was an entrepreneur looking to get venture capital, or whether it was a nonprofit organization trying to become a registered charity to be able to attract donations, we found some significant issues around access. And so venture capital funding, we have a lot of fantastic, talented, educated, hardworking Black entrepreneurs. Their ability to actually get financing from venture capital, extremely limited, like less than 1%, far less than 1%. We had individuals and businesses looking to get financing, and we saw that Black individuals were most likely to be denied, the least likely to receive the financing that they requested, and the most likely to receive higher interest rates for the loans that they were actually granted. And so when we statistically looked at trust levels and we asked, how much do you trust, whether it's financial institutions relative to other organizations, the trust levels were pretty low. And that was largely on the basis of having negative experiences when businesses and entrepreneurs look for funding. And the same for charities and nonprofits. And so this was all pre-pandemic. Right. And then what we saw during the pandemic was an exacerbation of this. And I was on very emotional calls, and especially in the early months of the pandemic, where charities and nonprofits were saying they had to cease operations. We had a significant proportion of businesses and entrepreneurs, well over a third, that had to shut. And in addition to that, we see Stats Canada data that shows that Black individuals were being laid off and were also being had their hours reduced much more disproportionately. And you can sort of track that through the various sort of waves of shutdown and reopening. It kind of didn't matter. The Black individuals were the first to be let go and the last to be hired back. And so ultimately what we are trying to do is to say, let's just give everybody an equal chance, an equal opportunity for success. And if we have to sort of create the funds and provide the individuals, and we have to step in and fill a gap that exists, then let's do that. And let's do that in a sustainable way, in a well-governed way, with all the proper process around it. And let's do it so that it's successful over the long term. And so ultimately, we're providing a tool that we think these organizations, these individuals, these entrepreneurs, these businesses should simply have. And we're just filling in the gap that we saw exist.
We might have to do this in two parts because we got a break coming up, but how did you yourself get involved?
Yes, it's a long story, but it was pre-pandemic, and I was asked by a friend to a dinner, which I guess is how many things start.
Yes.
And we sort of identified that there was this need, and I said absolutely, I'd be happy to get involved. And then right as the pandemic started, and we saw all of the disruption and the significant issues, we pushed.
Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Colin Lynch. He is the co-founder of the Black Opportunity Fund. Colin, just tell us more a little bit about some of the businesses you have already funded. Maybe give our viewers a little bit of a window on what's going on out there, some of these great entrepreneurs that you're talking about.
Yeah, well, early in the summer of last year, we were actually approached by Facebook and by the Coalition of Innovation Leaders Against Racism and Pitch Better. And we formed a group to provide funding to 55 digital businesses. And that was a great case study of how the Black Opportunity could work at scale. So we had funding for 55. Over the course of about 3 weeks, we received nearly 1,500 applications. And then so we stood up committees across the country, so Western Canada, Ontario, Quebec, Atlantic Canada, to adjudicate, to review the applications and to assess and to determine the 55 organizations that we're going to receive, plus communicate to the other 1,400 plus organizations that weren't able to receive funding, these businesses and entrepreneurs that weren't able to receive funding, to provide them with next steps. And that's also a key element, I think, of what we're trying to do. We're trying to effectively build capacity in the community as well. And so these businesses are quite inspiring. There's ones that are focused in healthcare, that are trying to pioneer new treatments. There's ones that are focused in food and doing food delivery. There are organizations that are doing education technology, so the ed tech space, and finding innovative ways to deliver, whether it's coding skills, for instance, to individuals. And so, this is all moving, our economy forward, and we're incredibly happy to be able to support these businesses. So that's only the start. That was 55 last summer, and this month we're opening support for additional support for Black businesses, both in the forms of loans and in the forms of also grants. And we're also this quarter opening support for Black charities and nonprofits as well. So very
so
busy.
You haven't started on the not-for-profits or charities yet?
Not yet,
okay.
Because we had to raise the funding.
Right.
And so having just raised the funding, now we're about to open the doors for applications.
Right on. Okay, good. You talk. I did examine your website. You talk about trust-based decision-making processes. Tell us a little bit about that. What does that entail?
Yeah. So what we did not want to do is be the individuals that sit in a room and create a solution and go out to the community and proclaim, we know what you need, here is your solution. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, we think that the risk of failure is pretty high when you do that. And so when we say trust-based, we mean that we go out to the community across the country, because that's the other thing. There's a lot of focus, for instance, on certain cities, but a lot of the country gets overlooked. So we think that national focus is really important, that we go out to across the country, we convene people and we listen and we hear what it is, what type of support, for how long, what else do they need beside finances. And then we design the Black Opportunity Fund to function in a way that actually responds to what we have heard. And so all throughout 2021 and through most of 2020, we've been having town halls and roundtables and the like, and we've engaged thousands of people, and with the explicit goal of doing exactly that: listening, hearing, and then reflecting what we do as a Black Opportunity Fund based off of what we've heard. There's been lots of, call it side benefits, connectivity, and folks have sort of created groups based off of particular areas like healthcare or the like, and that sort of spawned a lot of good things that have resulted. But that wasn't really the focus, even though it's a great side benefit. The real focus was listen to the community and then design on the basis of what they have told us. And we think when you do that, you build trust with whom you're serving in terms of supporting, and also with the community more broadly.
Yeah, and I would think that you're right. It makes the program more focused and more success-oriented rather than just sort of throwing money at a situation and hoping for the best. We're going to take another brief break. We'll be back with our guest, Colin Lynch, right after the messages. Please stay with us. And we're back here at Boom Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Colin Lynch. He is the head of global real estate investments at TD Asset Management, but for our purposes, he is one of the co-founders of the Black Opportunity Fund. Colin, just wondering, maybe it's too early at this stage, but I'd love to know how you define success in these investments. I'd love to know what sort of metrics you're using for that.
Yes, it's a great question. And we've got different metrics, whether we're looking at a business or an entrepreneur versus a charities, nonprofits, but focused on business and entrepreneurs, there's a few. And we have the benefit of a number of organizations that have helped us to design the Black Opportunity Fund, and we spent a lot of time on this. But some metrics. One is ultimately we're trying to promote healthy and sustainable businesses, right? So the ability of the business to grow revenue, to operate in a profitable manner, to grow employment is key. And when we look at the success of the fund overall, that's a key factor. Have we been able to grow employment in the community? Another success factor is, so when we're providing loans, is the loan being repaid? Right. Is the interest rate, when we set interest rates, we're setting them up in a very competitive and attractive way. So we're not giving 0% interest, but we're certainly giving interest rates that are more, call it, attractive than what the businesses and entrepreneurs would be able to get. But then you look at the repayment rate for the interest rate as well. We do look at sort of focus areas, and on the nonprofit and community side, two big focus areas right now are education and healthcare. And so what we do want to do is move the needle as it relates, for instance, to healthcare, whether it's research on diseases that impact the Black community that are really underfunded. So sickle cell disease is one, right. Where we need to move more dollars to be able to move outcomes as it relates, for instance, to sickle cell disease. And as it relates to education, we have statistics that show that the proportion of Black individuals that would like to aspire to tertiary education, i.e. college or university, is amongst the highest of any ethnic group in Canada. But it's the lowest when you look at the proportion that think that they will be able to do tertiary education. And so we want to change that. So we want to change the proportion that go from secondary to tertiary education as a big focus for us.
You mentioned, again, in your materials that you want to catalyze cultural, socioeconomic, institutional, and political change. Can you elaborate on that and give some examples? Yeah.
So those are four big words, but effectively, if you summarize that into a statement, it is to change the trajectory of the Black community in Canada. Okay. And so by funding, by helping entrepreneurs and businesses, by helping charities and nonprofits, you change the notion that many folks have in Canada about the Black community. You change, you improve, and you increase the the confidence in Black entrepreneurs and Black businesses. And that creates some of the cultural and the social, but it spills over into all aspects of life, which the political world is an important element of as well. And in terms of the interaction with the political world, that world sort of views the Black community as an economic engine for our country. And so it's that it is just changing the notion of that many folks have of the Black community in Canada by empowering the Black community to have the tools to be able to to contribute to the growth of our country.
Yeah, and it seems like the whole idea is to success breeds success, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It's that virtuous cycle, right? And we're trying to start that circle, and ultimately that's it. And to your other question about how do we measure success, it's that we've started that circle and we see that momentum growing.
We're going to take another brief break. Colin will be back right with you after a couple of messages. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Colin Lynch. He is the co-founder of the Black Opportunity Fund. Colin, I think you did touch on this, but I just want to tease it out a little bit more. You are national in scope, and I'd love to know what does that mean in the province of Quebec, for instance, and in also rural areas as well.
Yes. So in the province of Quebec, that's really, really important. That's representation on our board. That's representation in the staff complement. That's representation in terms of the town halls that I mentioned. As an example, we had one focused on healthcare. We've had two actually focused on healthcare. Right. One was specific to COVID and one was more broadly. And both had both English and French language sessions. And we had sort of breakout rooms, and there was one specific to Quebec, in addition to ones focused on other parts of the country. We also, so that's in terms of receiving information, but we also engage organizations in Quebec. So whether it's the group Twansette, who was quite involved, or the Côte de Neige Business Association also, but we've certainly had engagement with a number of community organizations in Quebec, and that's important. And we've also worked with a number of other partners on particular issues. COVID-19 was one where we did some work with the Privy Council office, and that work was, of course, in French, and so we did that, and with a number of physicians and other individuals across the community. So that's quite important, and we've had an explicit focus on Quebec, because we do think that when it comes to national endeavors, sometimes the Quebec contribution isn't sort of fully incorporated or appreciated sometimes, and that goes for rural. And so what we do say is that the experience of a Black individual in Toronto is very different than in Fort McMurray, or in much smaller centers like Moose Jaw. It's incredibly important that we hear, we engage, and we do the outreach to talk to individuals right across the country. There's a lot of Black individuals in Alberta involved in our oil and gas exploration and the energy sector that have been quite active in participating with the Black Opportunity Fund as well. And in terms of giving us insight, they've been extremely passionate. So it is intentional, and we have a lot of volunteers. We have hundreds of volunteers, and one asks, well, what do all those volunteers do? Part of the job description is helping us to do that outreach right across the country and also into the territories as well. And we've had some good engagement from folks working in the territories.
We've got just over a minute left, Colin. What's next for the organization?
We put our heads down and we continue to deliver. So we raise capital from corporations and individuals, and hopefully in the future from government partners as one side. But we ultimately have to deliver. We got to get capital into the community. We have to do it in a great way, and then we have to ensure that we work with the individuals that we support and the organizations and the businesses, and we work with them to deliver the outcomes. So ultimately, that's our focus. We want to make positive change, and so it's more, getting more work done.
Colin Lynch, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the program. Obviously, this is being recorded during Black History Month. And so really interesting, the kind of work you're doing, and obviously very impactful. So we wish you all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was Colin Lynch, a co-founder of the Black Opportunity Fund, obviously nationwide fund to assist in the creation and success of Black entrepreneurial companies, as well as not-for-profits and charities. We wanted to have this content in recognition and honor of Black History Month, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was a very interesting conversation, and looks like Colin and his team are doing a very good job. Thanks for watching today.